Hi everyone and welcome. This is SherLuc, and today we'll be covering the basics of the color caster role. So let's jump straight into it. The first thing is, on the opposite of the PvP role, you're not here as a leader to a conversation. Instead, you're here to answer questions and to explain things. See this as some sort of interrogation, in which you are here to predict and then explain what you failed to predict. So basically speaking, when there is a play happening on the map, there are two aspects of that play. The first one is you didn't expect it and you didn't cover it before. Then you're going to be explaining it afterwards. And by explaining, I don't mean saying, oh yeah, this spell went on this champion. No, maybe more. You always have to go more in depth about why things happened. So instead of saying, oh, this fight went right or wrong in the top lane, explain why there was a fight in the top lane in the first place. Because people already saw the fight. They saw what went wrong, right? They saw the three-man Orianna Shockwave or the multi-man Kennen ultimates. So they don't care about that. PvP already covered that. What they want to know was why goddamn was there a fight in top lane? Or why did we set up Baron in a 50-50? Or that sort of things. So you should always be paying attention to the layout of the map. And for these reasons, it is very important for core casters to always be watching the minimap during cast. Um, every single information you want to know is on the HUD interface. So, for example, if I take this state of game right there, I have everything I want here because as a colorcaster, all I care about is the state of the game, right? So I have the gold up here, I have the towers up here, I have dragons, the timer of the game, the kill count. Usually, I also have a scoreboard. Let me see if I can find something more, yeah, more adapted. So I do have the scoreboard here with CS advantages, we don't care about who has pressure on the lane. Instead, we just watch on the minimap, say, okay, top lane, Wukong has the pressure because he's more advanced on the map. Um, we have the pathing of the junglers here. We have everything we need to know. We have itemization. We have the cooldowns of the important cooldowns like the ultimates, summon spells. We don't need to look at the screen. We leave that for the PvP. If we see one jungler pathing straight towards the lane, we know there's a gank inbound. If we see people gathering around an objective, we know that a fight is about to break out. So once again, when you practice, try to not to only look at the HUD, at the HUD, and don't really pay attention to any of what's happening on the screen. So you're with all of these information that you can find on screen, you can predict anything that will happen in the game if you do have enough knowledge. Or you can simply satisfy yourself with explaining what you failed to predict. Since you're not the leader of the conversation, you should always be listening to your PvP. And trust is the key for that, which means when you are talking about something, your PvP is not clearly listening to you. He's thinking about what he should be asking you next, or he's thinking about a lot of other stuff. The thing is that when your PvP is talking, it is very important to listen to him because he's the one who's going to be asking you questions. And so, if you don't listen to him, you will be missing the point, or you will be creating a very awkward moment where you do not know what he was talking about. And so, you kind of like stand here saying, um, yes, and thinking in your head, shit, what were we talking about already? That's also one of the reasons that trust is key, because if you don't spend your time listening to your play-by-play, you can't spend your time thinking about what you want to say next. So instead, you have to trust your PvP that he will be setting you up for the next point to discuss, so that once you're done talking about the itemization that he asked you of, you're done talking, and then your PvP says, okay, and how is that itemization going to play into the next fight for maybe this objective? and you do not have to do anything. He's just setting you up. He's just walking you on the path he wants you to take. Pay super attention to the minimap, that's what we were talking about. One more reason why you want to pay attention to the minimap is to not create awkward moments like this one, for example. Pay close attention to the movements on the minimap of the enemy champions. Pay close attention to the state of the game, and the voice of Froskurin in that in before that play, and how Dracos has to shut her off because she didn't set him up in that play at all.
And Fnatic said in their interviews that while they were losing games, they felt that their team fighting was still clean, and you're starting to see some of this well-oiled machine. Every member knows exactly what their responsibility is to the team fights. Nemesis.
So she does have an observer on top of that. So you see on the observer that Alistar is working up, Sejuani is working up. You know that a team fight is about to break out with that configuration. You know that there is no point in backing off now. So everyone knows what's about to happen next, and because Frostgreen doesn't want to hold herself back, and Dracos doesn't try to cut her off before, he's gonna have to make things a bit more brutal, unnatural, and this is something that the viewer will inherently notice.
Constantly zoning away what did, constantly dissuading him from looking for the engagement.
Frostgreen, this could be the last dance. Prophet finding a good engage. Reckless lockdown.
And next is the PvP. So you can just feel how unnatural all of this feels, right? Instead of just having a team fight that is well set up, that is flawless, right? Now, this is the reason why you want to pay attention to your minimap. Next thing is, if it's too late, we're not talking about it. Sometimes, as a colorcaster, you want to say some things, right? You want to expose your knowledge. You want to make people, to have people perceive that you are very knowledgeable about the game. But this is all about your own ego, right? If instead you just focus around doing your job as a caster, it will make the cast much more appreciable, simply because you're not breaking the flow of the flow of the cast, going back to a point where there's really no link between what you were talking before and what you're bringing on the plate now. So, for example, if, say, your PvP was setting you up on top lane matchup, for example, and you're very knowledgeable about that top lane matchup, you go on about it, and then there's a fight that breaks out in the bottom lane, so PvP cuts you off, and then there's a Drake, and then there's, for example, the junglers getting involved in the mid lane. After all these 2 minutes of action, there is no point in suddenly going back to top lane matchups anymore, unless your PvP sets you up for that. So you have to swallow up your pride, and you have to forget about it. You couldn't say it? Too bad. Let's go next. And now, one of the things that is also very important, no flame, all fame. You want to magnify the players. You want to make them look good, not to make them look bad. If they are doing mistakes, and you know they are mistakes, well, cope with it. Try to at least make out some advantages of what they are doing. If you think Renekton is a bad champion and should never go BRK in the first item, and you see a player doing just exactly that, try to say nice things about it. Be like, yeah, Renekton, one of the most oppressive champions in solo queue, and with that BRK, he's perfectly able to one-burst people down, especially in the silence, where he makes up for a great threat. Even if you know that this is wrong, or even if you don't believe any of what you're saying, we don't care about that, because you're saying something that puts the player under the spotlight, and you're also being persuasive by advancing credible points, right? Where saying Renekton is strong because it's strong in solo queue is something that people can believe in an amateur environment. Saying that with BRK he's able to one-shot people is something that they will believe because they have seen it before in solo queue. So there are multiple styles of color casting, and we'll get deeper into them in the technique videos. For now, I just want to show you a quick example, quick two examples of color casting. One of which we don't have to watch in this video. I strongly advise you to go over the first 5 minutes of this game, Mad Lions versus Fnatic, Week 2, Day 2 of the 2021 Spring Split, which was a game that was just played on the 13th of January, and that's a cast with Quickshot and Ender. And Quickshot is a really good PvP to set up car casters. So watch the first 5 minutes, listen to Ender's cast, and notice how what he's talking about is inherently immediately useful in his cast, where he's talking about both junglers being where he's talking about Evelyn being an inactive champion until level 6, and instantly he's saying that Fnatic's laners will not have any bit of help before that point. And then when Wipo gets outplayed by Armut in the top lane for the first few minutes, it's just logical, because Andrew just said that Pantheon wouldn't be getting any help, so it feels normal to see him struggle in the game. I strongly advise you to go listen to it and pay close attention to what Andrew is saying. This is a really good example of early game color casting. Now, one of the things too is that as a color caster, you always have to pay attention to the energy of the game, right? The example of Frostgreen not not escalating the energy of her voice is something that is the polar opposite of that, right? Instead, let's see what happens when you have a very strong team fight followed up by the car caster.
The base! He wants it! He wants it! Nemesis is trying to keep him around! Jankos is so low, the teleport gets out! Nemesis gets taken out as well! The base is still alive! And G2 survive in this game!
This is the greatest game ever! G2 defend the base, the Nexus is still alive! Medic catch your breath! G2 that actually keep this game alive as Fnatic lose 4 members. The gold doesn't matter.
So you see just how, for example, Vidius follows up with the energy of the voice of Medic right after this play, instead of, just picking up with a calm voice and explaining what just happened in a very classic fashion. No, instead, he knows that right after this play, the spectator is on the edge of his seat because what he just saw was absolutely incredible. So Vidius is playing on that as well and following up with high energy in his voice, not immediately breaking down what just happened, but rather restating the current state of the game, and then going from there, he slowly lowers his voice and start to explain stuff. Alright, so this has been a 13-minute video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that this had been useful to you. I also hope that if you wanted to go into car casting, you have a better idea now of the skills that you need in order to get into casting. I wish you all a very good practice. Have a good one.